Yo, this is Peter Mansbridge, and I'm taking a breaky poo from the news. But I'm gonna read you a little article from Ron Paul, dated March 3rd, 2026, titled Stuck in Another Disastrous Middle East War. Unfortunately, President Trump listened to the neocons and Benjamin Netanyahu instead of his MAGA base and other voices of caution as he launched a surprise attack on Iran over the weekend. For the second time in 9 months, the U.S. administration used negotiations with Iran as a cover to launch a pre-planned attack. Last week's talks produced progress according to all sides, with technical teams set to meet this week to work out the details. President Trump, however, suddenly announced that he was not happy with the talks because the Iranian side refused to say the magic words, that they were not to pursue nuclear weapons. But Iran has been insisting for decades that they have no interest in producing a nuclear weapon, and our own intelligence has confirmed that they are not doing so. Shortly after President Trump's announcement, the U.S. and Israel launched their attack, killing Iran's religious leader along with some 40 other political and military leaders in a decapitation strike. It was supposed to be like the Venezuela operation, quick and painless for the U.S., kill the leadership, and the long-suffering people would take to the streets and reclaim their country. It may make a good plot for a Hollywood movie, but in real life, these regime change operations have never worked. Millions take to the streets in Iran, but it was to mourn the slain Ayatollah and to reaffirm support for their government. Just like we rallied around the flag after the attacks on 9/11. Quickly, Iranian retaliation for the attacks began to take their toll on U.S. assets and Israel. U.S. soldiers have been killed and U.S. fighter jets have been shot down. U.S. bases in the region are either damaged or destroyed. Likewise, U.S. embassies and consulates have come under attack, including by Iraqis likely still furious over the U.S. destruction of their country 20 years ago. And with the Pentagon warning that the operation may go weeks instead of days, we are quickly running out of missiles. Billions of dollars have already been spent on this unprovoked attack, and when the smoke clears, if it does, we may see hundreds of billions or maybe much more having been wasted on yet another Middle East war. Just what President Trump promised he would not do. The neocon cakewalk crowd, including Lindsey Graham and others, have been proven wrong again. Tragically, more American servicemen may die while the neocons blame someone else for the fiasco they helped launch. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said of the U.S.-Israeli attack that this combination of forces enables us to do what I have longed to do for 40 years. But the purpose of the U.S. military is not to fulfill the decades-old wishes of foreign leaders. There is a good reason we have a constitution that says only Congress can declare war. Launching a military strike during negotiations will have lasting negative effects for the United States. Who would ever trust U.S. diplomacy again if talks are used as a distraction for pre-planned attacks? The administration is doing its best to spin this unfolding disaster as all going according to plan, but what is the plan? No one knows. Do they know? Here's a plan. End this today. Return the destroyed U.S. bases to the countries where they are located, and just come home. That is what a real America First movement looks like. And that was an article by Ron Paul, who is a former Republican congressman from Texas. He was the 1988 Libertarian Party candidate for president. And do I want to give some thoughts on the war and stuff right now? I guess I'll say that I read that article from Ron Paul because he's correct. He was correct about this war, the last war, the war before that. Probably the next one. I hope that the war right now with Iran doesn't turn to a global world war. You got like Russia, China, Iran. Got the States and Israel and all of our allies. There's talks in Europe about getting a draft going, sending people to Ukraine front lines, which is essentially like a suicide mission, so that's horrible. Like I said, I hope it doesn't turn into like a global big ass war, World War III, if you will. You don't want to be an alarmist. It's like you don't want to worry about these things. Can I control World War III? No. So it's like tomorrow they could come out, not likely, next week they could come out and be like, yo, we negotiated a little ceasefire because we don't want nuclear weapons to pop off either, guys, so we got a little ceasefire going. You wouldn't think our leaders would want to flirt with active wars with like superpowers or whatever that have nuclear weapons, or even if Russia's not a superpower, big ass countries with nuclear arsenals. But the Ukraine-Russia war has been going on forever, and Israel's obviously not shying away from going into Iran. They're like in an 8-front war, so they love war. It's making sense now why through all the 2000s, like, they wouldn't shut up about war. 9/11 happened. Sus. Leave it at that. And they're just dropping money, dropping bombs, killing people, destabilizing the Middle East. Seems like Israel wants to be the only power in the Middle East. Take out all their enemies. Don't even care if it's like turn your country into civil war where their government can't provide for people, refugee crisis, but the people who have to stick around, the poor people, suffer the consequences of like lawlessness and warlords and like competing powers and competing rebels. And oftentimes one of the rebels are like funded by the US or these non-profits, some of these billionaires, Soros, this and that, to essentially seed chaos. Because if you fund a rebel, you well fund the rebel group, give them weapons and all this, they're going to be able to be a force against the government. So you're essentially funding a civil war. And don't kid yourself, these central banks, man, they fund both sides. So both sides have to borrow money. These central banks get their money. Whoever wins, they come out on top. All these billionaires, billionaires, whatever, they're buying their little bunkers. All these elites have their little bunkers, and they'd rather start a war than be like, yeah, we messed up with COVID, and we messed up with the inflation and the printing money, and, you know, you caught us, we're kind of screwing you over, and we kind of lie to you all the time, and we kind of control your politicians, but we're going to get these wars going. It's like, man. That's kind of my read on it, I guess. And back in the day, there was a general, who was it, Wesley Clark? I can't remember. There was a memo that got leaked where they were basically saying we're going to hit 7 countries in 5 years. And Iran is the last one. So this has been coming for a long time. And as I said in this article, Benjamin Netanyahu stated he's been waiting like 40 plus years for this. So they've wanted this war for a long time. I don't know if they banked on Iran retaliating the way they did, hitting all the G7, or not the G7, the Arab nations or whatever. All the rich ass Arab nations that they use to like sell their oil, and like the billionaires go to hang out and all this. They like, you know, dropping bombs there, and Israel's getting messed up with bombs, and they closed the Strait of Hormuz. You know, I don't know if they seen that coming. Now they're talking about sending ground troops there to open that up, because it's like, oh, we have to have our cheap ass energy. We have to have the society built on the cheap ass energy and the oil and the cheap ass plastic. Otherwise, it all falls apart. And it's like, was it worth it, man? This war, you shouldn't have started it. It was a war of choice. And it's too obvious that America's in it for Israel. America doesn't want this war. Americans don't want this war. The Israeli government wants this war. So like I keep saying, it's the United States of Israel, and Bibi Netanyahu is the president of the United States of Israel. And there's rumors that he might be dead, like he might have been assassinated in one of these attacks, because no one's seen him. He's been skipping meetings. Word on the street is, his son, who lives in Florida, who tweets nonstop 30 times a day, stopped tweeting for 7 days. I'm not too familiar with the Jewish faith. Word on the street is when someone you love dies, you go dark for 7 days. His son went dark for 7 days, then started tweeting again, and then they post these AI fake ass videos of Benjamin Netanyahu as if to be like, yo, check it out, he's alive and well, see, check it out. But they're like fake. So he's either dead, injured, in my opinion, allegedly, or they know people think he's dead or injured. They're playing off it or something. They know the AI looks a little fake. And it's just another little tactic. You want to be mysterious in these circumstances, right? You don't really want to show your hand. So if you could sort of say to your enemy, yeah, our leader is dead, you don't know what's going on, that is a little leverage point you could use. But so I don't know what's going on. He could be dead, maybe not. I know they killed the Ayatollah of Iran, who apparently was just kind of chilling. Not like he wanted it to happen, but apparently in that religion, you got the Sikhs and the Sunnis. Apparently in one of them, I think it's the Sikhs. Don't quote me on this. It's like a warrior type mentality, like the Japanese and the Bushido type thing. Like we go to the death kind of thing. And like if you die for your religion or for your God, Allah or whatever, if you're like a martyr, that's like one of the biggest things to be respected for or something. Almost like he was 86, he had some cancer going on, and he's like, I'm going to let him, allegedly, in my opinion, some people saying maybe let America kill him so he can, get the country fired up. He's a martyr. He goes out, I guess, according to his religion, as a king or a martyr or whatever. So the whole thing's a mess. They're hitting energy factories, oil refineries, natural gas stations, blowing them up, both sides. So prices are going to go crazy, and it's like just funny listening to people talk about prices when it's like people are being bombed, people are dying, like in the early days of the war, a U.S. missile took out like a school with like 170 girls in there, because I think it's like girls' school, female school, male school, so it's like people are dying. And it's like we'll make jokes about gas prices and this and that, and it's like they didn't have to do this war. What can we do about it? I mean, not to say nothing, all the people who say like you can't do anything and just live your life and this and that and ignore it, that's cope. That's cope. That's them realizing they're not in control. People aren't really looking out for you. The economy ain't gonna turn around. No one is really coming to save you. And your cope, instead of like figuring out what's going on and how we can move forward and whatever is like, you can't change it. That's the thing. You can't change it. It's like, no, dude, the grasshoppers got the ants confused, powerless, thinking they can't change it, but there's more ants than there are grasshoppers. So it's like, if you stop with the labor, the taxes, all this shit grinds to a halt. We're not in a position to do that because we don't have a secure food and water supply. I'm not going to get into it, but here we are, so detached from our food. We're so busy, living paycheck to paycheck, on the hamster wheel. If the energy turns off, if the lights shut off, if the food trucks stop coming, we're sitting ducks. We got nothing prepared. It would just be chaos. So I don't want to get into like where all this is going. I hope we don't go to this world war, like I was saying. That's kind of just whatever. And yeah, there certainly are things you can do. It's not that you can't change it, this and that. It's like, no, you gotta know your enemy, man. It's like Rage Against the Machine ended up being a bunch of lames. But you gotta know your enemy and you gotta know what they're doing, and then therefore you gotta go the other way. So it's not about, it is about focusing on the things you can control. So we're eating good food, we're stretching, we're getting hydrated, we're getting 8 hours of sleep, this kind of thing. We're not trying to drink too much alcohol, we're not trying to be on too many pills, we're not trying to be on the screens all day, we're not trying to lie, cheat, and steal, cover their neighbor's wife. Basic ass shit here. We're getting back to basics. We need to come together, get the food going. And I'm talking like, this is just like pipe dream, not gonna happen, but just me like extrapolating or using my imagination of like what I would do if I was in charge, or like, you know, not me, but someone thinking like me, maybe what we need to do, some radical ass change. Is like, boom, most of our labor is like not making money for these corporations. It's like there's a radical shift from we're doing all these jobs for corporations to now we're working for ourselves. We're coming together as a community, organizing, leaning on our strengths and weaknesses, building our own homes, living in them, growing our own food, eating it, raising our own children how we want life. And like, basic people, everyone is good in my opinion at their heart, unless you're a psychopath. So you just want the same things. Even if you don't want kids, you just want the kids to be happy, you want you to be happy, you want an okay job, fulfillment, good relationships, community, healthy food. You want to feel athletic. We don't want to keep feeling sluggish and inflamed. It's like very basic, back to the fundamentals type shit. Instead of going to work 10, 12, 8 hours for all these corporations, it's like we're making sure we have food. Oh, we live in Canada, we need to have greenhouses. It's like we gotten away from, they push us to materialism on purpose. So we have a drive to like work the paychecks all the time, paycheck to paycheck, non-stop hustle, grind, so you can like just make as much money as possible. Not saying everyone who's like hustling and making money are doing it for this reason, but I'm just saying they've bred us almost to be materialistic and chase that status. So that's what we're attracted to. That's just what our culture is based on. So that's just kind of what we're doing. And on the top, they're just taking us to war, and they're making billions and trillions. And you know what? They're going to borrow $200 billion on this war. And, you know, that's why they want the war. Because, guys, they lend the governments the $200 billion. They get interest on $200 billion. Okay? So they don't care who wins. They probably just want, because no one's questioning COVID, this and that, why the moon cycles are all messed up, cause all this and that, all the bail, all the murders, and all the, even the immigration, like things go on the back burner as soon as the bombs start dropping, as soon as they start talking about troops on the ground and sending your sons and daughters to die in the Middle East for Israel again. So shit gets real at that point in time. Which is why I appreciate Pierre Poilievre going on Rogan, but I was a tad disappointed. Just because I don't feel that sense of urgency, like that there are two hot active wars between two sides that have nuclear weapons that we would not flirt with 10, 20 years ago. And I appreciated what Pierre was doing, but I just felt he was kind of talking about fighting in MMA and shit when there's like, you know, Canada is bleeding out, in my opinion. And I'm like, yo, we got to put gauze in this wound and we got to wrap it up. We got to stop the bleeding. You know, and people are like just a little too lackadaisical about it or whatever. But I appreciate Pierre on the podcast because he has to appeal to the everyday person to get as much votes as he can so that maybe Canada can turn around a little bit if Pierre gets in there and does some good policies. But I'm not about sitting around and waiting for government to come save us. So at the same time, I'm a realist, so I read the situation. People aren't ready for like quitting their quitting all their shit and like starting a communal. Almost sounds like I'm trying to start a cult or something. Yeah, guys, come join my cult, alright? Whatever. No, it's like, so I'm reading the room and it's like, so we're not there, so what am I doing? I'm just like, still taking a little breaky poo from the news. But checking in here or there, letting Ron Paul keep me up to date. And just, like I said, for that one guy, you don't got to follow the news, the day-to-day. It's stressful. You can just, like, if you know your history, just read it. Like I said, 7 countries in 5 years they wanted to hit. Syria, Libya, Iraq, Afghanistan. They got Sudan in chaos. They got Assad out of Syria. Gaddafi out of Libya. Iraq's messed up. Afghanistan's messed up. And whatever other countries happens to be around this little country in the Middle East here. So, Yemen, messed up and bombing them for years. Even in Sudan, there's like a crazy ass genocide going on. It's like, man, I'm gonna get out of here, but 21 minutes, that's good. But like, Israel bombs the shit out of Gaza on the West Bank, kills a bunch of people, mostly like children, like kids and stuff, and like the bodies aren't, they haven't buried their loved ones. Like, Gaza's not functional, the West Bank isn't functional. It's like the bodies are under the rubble still probably, and they're already just bombing the next country. It's like, it starts to put in perspective why the US has been in all these crazy countries, and why it really does give you, why certain people were not happy, but they're like, this 9/11 happening is good. Because America is now going to hate Muslims, view Muslims as the enemy, and they're going to help us go to the Middle East, revenge for, America. This and that. Like, it's starting to make sense. And I just kind of always followed it. I didn't really want to look into why the things were going on. I always thought it got a little too speculative. A little woo-woo, a little conspiracy. I never really wanted to get into that kind of stuff. Although I will dive into that for fun, and I did. And that's what I did. I dived into that for fun, and I was like, let me pull back from that. And now here I am. I'll dive into it here and there. Never really looked into like why, what were the motives, why the death and destruction. I got the money thing. You control the central banks. You got the stocks. You're the shareholders of all these like big ass defense these big ass defense companies that get these big ass defense contracts. So there's a lot of money flying around that they're getting a piece of on each end, any end they can. They'll lend you the shit so that you give it to them. So they buy the shit, make the shit, so you buy it from them. Banks lend the government the money, so the government gives them to the defense contractors because they're making the bombs, the missiles, the tanks, this and that. They give it right back to them, that kind of thing. It's like, so I got that. You guys love money. You love controlling the world. You love sitting around making money on the stock market, and we're all working 9 to 5, and you're in a class above us. You look at us as maybe subhuman, or we're goyim, or whatever. It's like, I got that, the money bit, the insider trading, the politicians being greedy, but I was like, man, you guys are killing the babies and shit. Like, it's like you blow up the schoolgirl, the building with all the schoolgirls, the females. It's like you killed all the children, the men, women, and children in Gaza and West Bank, and it's like Iraq, Afghanistan is like, how can we do this? And now it's kind of starting to make sense, but I'm not going to get into all the crazy religious shit that these guys seem to believe. Some of these people who want to see the U.S. and Israel go to war with Iran, and maybe want to see them lose. So anyway, I'll get out of here. I just hope that the war ends soon. I don't think it will. Ukraine and Russia should have never started. And it's funny, I remember someone at the end of COVID being like, yo, should I not trust the government about Ukraine and Russia? It's like, no, you shouldn't trust them about Ukraine and Russia. You shouldn't trust them about the US and Iran. And that war shouldn't have started, Ukraine, Russia. And it's still going. And now they're talking about drafting European men to go and die. Now that they've gone through all the Ukrainian men. You know, they go through all the Ukrainian men, so they start taking whoever. They start taking like 6-year-old men, people who wouldn't be going. They start taking older men. You know what I'm saying? They roll up in their vans and they throw you in the van, put you to the front lines to die. And Russia's got control of these front lines. They got crazy ass drones flying around, and the Russians are. We shouldn't be fighting the Russians. Shouldn't be provoking the bear. It's not like it should be peace on earth, kumbaya, but there's like active forces keeping this shit chaotic and making a lot of money on the chaos and the death and the chaos and all this. So getting kind of sick of this, to be honest. But hopefully, that's what I was gonna say. Hopefully that war ends tomorrow. It's not. Russia Ukraine should have ended. Shouldn't have started. It's not going to end. I don't see. I think this shit's going on for a long time, but I hope I'm wrong about that. Anyway, thanks for listening. Peace.